Fanfiction is literature. The Western canon is mostly just a pile of AO3 tags and a trench coat. The classics were messy, petty, derivative, and arguably the most toxic fandom environment in history. Let's start with a classic writer of fix-it fanfic, the poet Virgil. The Aeneid is not an original story. It is a commissioned fanfic of Homer's Iliad. In the original canon, the Trojans are the losers. They lose the war, their city burns, they die. Virgil, writing hundreds of years later for a Roman audience that claimed Trojan ancestry, looked at that ending and said, absolutely not. He wrote a massive fix-it fic, where the losers actually survive, sail away, and found the greatest empire on earth. He retconned the entire ending of the Trojan War. And he didn't stop there. He wrote the original toxic situationship with Dido. Aeneas sleeps with her, lives in her palace, acts like her husband, and then when he decides to ghost her for his career, he literally looks her in the eye and delivers the Latin equivalent of, I never said we were exclusive. Then you have Dante. People are tearing apart R.F. Kuang's Catabasis right now for being a pretentious self-insert. Listen to me. Dante Alighieri wrote the Divine Comedy, which is the undisputed masterpiece of Italian literature. It is also a self-insert fic, where he is the only living main character. He gets to hang out with his literary idol Virgil, and his guide to heaven is his real-life crush, who never talked to him. But it gets pettier. It's also a bash fic. Dante literally wrote his real-world political enemies into the circles of hell. He put the Pope that he hated upside down in a hole with his feet on fire. That's called using your platform to flame the haters. And for the girls who think they invented dark romance and morally gray villains, John Milton did it first. Paradise Lost was supposed to be a religious text justifying the ways of God. But Milton accidentally wrote the first Draco in leather pants trope. He gave Satan all the best lines, the most angst, and that I can fix him energy. Myself am hell. That is the original emo lyric. Goth girls rejoice. But the smoking gun? The Brontë sisters? Before Charlotte Brontë wrote Jane Eyre, she spent her teenage years writing real person fiction. She was obsessed with the Duke of Wellington, the Prime Minister. She wrote millions of words of stories set in a fantasy world called Angria, where a character clearly based on the Duke was a brooding, hypersexualized anti-hero. She wrote RPF about the head of the government. Jane Eyre is just the filed-off serial numbers version of her Wellington fanfiction. And finally, if you think sanitizing stories for modern audiences is a problem, look at Tennyson. He took the brutal, incestuous, messy legends of King Arthur and turned them into idylls of the king. He scrubbed them so clean for Victorian morality that the poet Swinburne roasted him, calling it the Mort d'Albert, implying he turned King Arthur into a boring version of Prince Albert. He got cancelled by his own peers for making it too PG. So read your fanfic, write your AUs. Because looking at history, the only difference between cringe internet writing and a classic is about 200 years and a leather binding. Your turn. Which classic would you fix, and what's the first change you'd make? Drop it in the comments. Until next time, keep your candles lit and your prefaces loaded.